So you link, it's not only about you, it's about them. You think before you go into the interview, what are the values that are important to them?
Correct. Yes.
And then don't create values you didn't have, but look for the synergy. If
Right.
they're interested in these kinds of
Yeah.
values, where can you reflect on your childhood and through your life to this point
Mm.
with the values have brought you to where you are today and how it's a match with that company?
Hi, this is Brad Henry. On the podcast, we have stories about the underdog. I've had a lot of victory, but more tragedy in my life has made me very compassionate and perceptive on those who struggle, but those who are not willing to give up. And these stories will hopefully inspire you to become more and be more in life, to give you hope, to know that victory can be right around the corner. And hopefully today's story will be that one to put you in a great mindset to know that everything in life is attainable with persistence and hope. So thank you for listening today, and I think you will really enjoy our channel. Grateful to have him on the show today. Artie, thank you for joining us.
Always a pleasure. Today is the second of a three-part series, so I'll mention up front that the first part was preparing from your home to be ready for interviews, which is what we'll talk about today, as well as for resumes, which will be what we'll talk about in phase three. But I'll suggest to your viewers, if they've not seen the first of these three-part series, watch that first. Stop this video now. It'll be here for you later.
Hmm.
Go back to that because all of what we'll talk about today is built on a foundation from the first of the three,
Yeah.
which talked about every job has key skills for success. Your past behavior is the best predictor of future performances, which is what during the interview they'll be asking you about your past behavior. And we'll teach you in the first segment how to be a star communicator, where your story about your past behavior engages the brain and the heart of your interviewer. So if you haven't watch that first. And then today we'll get into the interview itself, what I consider to be the five stages of the interview, and how you can ace each one of the five steps. And I know many of you are fearsome of the interview with good reason. Brad, you've probably seen as your viewers the surveys that say public speaking is one of the highest fear factors many times in those surveys, more than fearing death. And if you think about an interview, if you're going to rank kinds of public speaking, probably the interview is the worst. It's like the old Roman Colosseum where the emperor and everybody's going to give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So much is at stake when you're making your public speech, basically the interview, talking about yourself and your past behaviors. Even if it's for a promotion, you're working against your competitors. You want to get that better job for your family. Maybe you're out of work and that next paycheck is not there and you need to make this interview work for you. There's so much at stake. We're fearful. And we don't want to come across as nervous and fearful. And we get brain lock, we know when we're fearful. So let's talk a little bit about, even before the steps of the interview, preparation for the interview is overcoming that fear first. So let me use a little example for you. Let's imagine, Brad, you and I have a contest. We're going to drive a nail
Yeah.
into a block of wood. And the contest for you and me, Brad, is one shot. You hold the nail, you hold the hammer, bam, you can drive it in as far as you can. We understand the rules, right?
Yep.
Now, let's say I'm the first up with the hammer, and I say to you, Brad, hold the nail.
Ooh.
You hold the nail for me while I slam away. How do you feel about that?
I would be pretty nervous.
Exactly. The key is control.
Mm.
We're holding the nail and we're holding the hammer. In effect, we're in full control. We still may hit our thumb. That's happened to me. But if I'm not even holding the hammer and you sense those who are interviewing you, have the hammer,
Ah.
controlling your life, that's a very fearful situation. So, how do you overcome that fear? preparation. When you are prepared, when you know what to expect, when in your mind you've rehearsed your speeches, your talk, your presentation, your star communication, that gives you a sense of control, Brad, and that reduces the fear factor. And we're going to talk about the 5 steps of the interview. And if you know what to expect for each phase, when you really think about it, 80% of the interview is you talking about yourself. So don't worry, folks. If you're prepared, you've got a good story to tell.
But folks, Artie said something very important. You got to watch the first one because he came up with something profound to me that I hadn't thought of. He said, in the interview, it isn't just about you. How can you help our organization be better? And that was like blew my yes, absolutely. I'm thinking about what I can tell them about me, but no, it's how can my talents affect the organization?
Yeah, get control of the hammer through preparation. So it's all about, like, thank you again for the first video. How do you prepare at home so that you know what stories you want to tell, and then during the different stages of the interview, you're prepared to tell your story. And then it's like going to the teacher of the history exam. We talked about that in the first episode, and you say, "What are you going to put on the final exam?" "Okay, prof, I'm going to go and be prepared for that." Right. I'm now your professor. I'm telling you, this is what's going to happen in the final exam. These are the 5 stages that you need to anticipate is going to happen in your interview and how to get ready for each phase. So if you'll bear with me a minute, I got a little chart here. We're going to have this as interactive and visual. So let's see where we go. Imagine, if you will, this is a clock and a half hour. Let's talk in terms of a half-hour interview. So let's imagine this is the time. What happens in the beginning and what happens down to the bottom. I'm going to get rid of this side of the chart because I'll write some notes for you. And of course, take notes as you work your way along. So
When you just erased that left side, it
yeah,
it it brought down my blood pressure. It was like it wasn't the whole thing. It was okay, you broke it down.
only half.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about the beginning of the interview, that's the first step. What's the first step? Breaking the ice. You remember these old things to knock out the ice cubes? The first of 5 steps of an interview is the ice break. So let me just put down one. That's really 2 parts. The first is first impressions. And we'll talk about this in a second. It's nonverbal. You're walking into the room, first impression. And then the second is they usually say to something like this: "Hey, Brad, a pleasure to meet you. Sit down, be comfortable. Read your resume. It looks good. Tell me a little bit about yourself." Or they might say, "Brad, nice to meet you. Why should we hire you?" It depends on the style of the interviewer, but that first part of the interview is not jumping into, "Give me an example from your past when you had to resolve a conflict, blah, blah, blah." It's getting rapport built. It's learning about the other person. First impressions. How long does that first impression take? I'm going to draw a line on here. This represents time. So my point is that little red line,
Yep.
1 second. There's a book by Dr. Dean Bellavia that's called The 1 Second Personality. He's got a whole analysis system based on first impressions on someone done in a second. It's got to do with how we've been genetically geared for a million years, fight or flight. Do we
Yep.
want to have lunch with somebody, or in the caveman days, do we want to be somebody's lunch? Okay. We have to make quick decisions whether we join and feel comfortable or whether we run for safety. Those have been instinctively wired into all of
Yep.
us. It happens whether you like it or not. In fact, from the point of view of an interviewer, we have to be careful not to form an immediate first impression that's going to bias the rest of the half-hour interview, because they may be a really good person, qualified, capable, but our first impression, something set us off, and we let ourselves get biased through the rest. Try not to get that bias. It's going to be there, but try not to let it interfere with what you're really learning about this person and how they can contribute to your organization. But from the interviewee's standpoint, you want to do all you can to have a positive first impression before it's even verbal, They say that the means of communications, there's a study that's, I think it's 7, 38, 55% proportion that deals with words, tone of voice, and body language. And do you know what counts the most? It's not the words you use. It's not the tone of voice that you use. It's your body language. Think of two words. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Someone says, I think we ought to do such and such. And someone says, yeah, right. The two words are neutral. But how the tone of voice is, yeah,
Ah,
right. Yeah, right. Or, yeah, right.
uh-huh.
Tone of voice.
Yes.
Body language.
Yeah.
38, 55. The study that was done by a California professor, 7% is the words, 38% tone of voice. Yeah, right. 55% is nonverbal
Yeah.
clues, your
Yeah.
body language. So first impression, that skinny red line, 1 second. So what can you do to improve that 1 second first impression? What are things that you see and you can try to control when you walk into that interview?
Being confident, just pleasurable, not having an air of arrogance, just
Absolutely. Things like eye contact, look them in the eye.
yeah.
Things like a smile, a
Yeah.
firm handshake. You talk about
Yeah.
looking confident. That's the difference between coming in like
Yeah.
this. Now, be careful. There's a good book called The Culture Map that talks about cultural differences, mostly talking about country cultures, but
Hmm.
sometimes your interviewer is from a different culture, so you need to be sensitive to it. What you and I might see as a positive, confident, look them in the eye face, someone may interpret as aggressive.
Ah,
What you and I might think of, well, that person's got no self-confidence. They're kind of, looking down. Another culture might look at that as being respectful,
ah,
referring. So everything needs to be put in context. But in generally, if we're talking USA, most of your audience, USA, North American culture, it's going to be a smile, look them in the eye, try to use their name, and do the handshake.
that goes back to the first part, preparing for the interview.
Preparing, yeah, think about it a little bit ahead. So let's go on with our little diagram here. We're going to work our way through the half-hour interview. So the next part is just what you talked about. This is all breaking the ice. And what you talked about was try to build a little rapport in those first few seconds. And you can do that, glance around the room. You see a tennis trophy as
Yeah.
as you're getting to your seat. Oh, gee, I see you're a tennis player. I play tennis too. Do you like clay court? Do you like paved courts? Do you play often?
Yes.
What you see a picture, three
Yeah.
kids on the family. Oh, do you have family
Yep.
interests? Maybe you see charts and graphs and stacks of paper. Maybe the person's data oriented rather than people oriented. It's not about you, it's about them. Doesn't mean you need to be someone false. It doesn't mean you need to be lying, never lie. It doesn't mean you have to put on a mask and fake the interview. Be courteous and sensitive to them. What is it they tune into? What is it they like? And how can you show them that you're likable and would fit with the culture of the organization? That's all part of ice breaking, getting to know them, getting to know you. Now, in this part here about tell about yourself, I'll give you a quick formula. I go into it a little more detail in the book where we have more time than in a short half hour, more or less, conversation. Tell about yourself. Four things, and this will seem strange: childhood, education, experience, and bridging. Let me talk about each of those. I'll just mark them down here so you'll remember them. Childhood. Now, probably Brad, you and the viewers are saying to themselves, talking about the 5 gold stars you got for finger painting in kindergarten, that doesn't go a long way in an interview. No, I'm not talking about that. And I'm not talking about when they say to you, tell me a little bit about yourself. And then the response is, I'd really rather not. I kind of need this job. Okay. You do need to talk about yourself and why childhood's important. What's the one thing that carries from childhood to this job interview? Your values.
Mm.
your value system that was ingrained in you as a child, that
Hmm.
are fundamental beliefs, and things like my family was very socially oriented. So we were always going out, working in the community. And as a child, I grew up with that value that I bring to me today and ties to your company values as published on your website. Values. I was the oldest in the family and quickly had to take on responsibilities with a busy family, taking care of the younger kids, an old grandmother who lived in the house. I learned responsibility as a youth, and that has carried forward for me throughout my education and my career in leadership and running activities. And that's part of why I'm interested in this opportunity. So you link, it's not only about you, it's about them. You think before you go into the interview, what are the values that are important to them?
Correct. Yes.
And then don't create values you didn't have, but look for the synergy. If
Right.
they're interested in these kinds of
Yeah.
values, where can you reflect on your childhood and through your life to this point,
Mm.
where values have brought you to where you are today and how it's a match with that company? All right, we're spending a lot of time on these first couple minutes, but they're fundamental to
Yeah.
starting a
Oh,
program in the right
if you
direction.
goof up the first one,
And then
it
then you're trying to fight back.
yeah.
Okay. So enough on breaking the ice. 1 second, right impressions. Tell a little bit about yourself, childhood, education. You just need to show you're qualified. I have an undergraduate degree in this. I'm going for a master's in business administration, and this business opportunity fits with that education. Experience. This is your brand. Branding the animal,
Wow.
your brand. Your brand, you're going to have the whole interview to talk about all of your successes, but this is your moment to give you a 30-second, they call it elevator speech. You're in the elevator with an executive, you got 30 seconds to get to your floor, and you want to communicate something that leaves a favorable impression. That call that an elevator speech. But it's basically, in this case, your brand saying, you know, what I've been good at is being team oriented, goal oriented, and pay attention to detail. And I've been very successful. Our team in sales for our region, 2 years in a row, we won the team award for the most productive sales group. Goal orientation, we met all of the targets and blew them out of the water. And attention to detail, we'll talk in a few minutes about the $50,000 I saved because I was really looking at the details of an old contract that really wasn't in our favor. We'll get to that shortly. That's your brand. Team orientation, goal orientation, and attention to detail. Why is that brand important? Because you've done the research on them and you've seen that those are skills they're looking for in their
I
job.
love that analogy and how you burn the brand. That's you. Very few of us know who we are.
Well, then that's all part of the first video. At home preparation. Think about who you are. Think about what they need and where's your match. And when you come in, you're loaded for bear. You're going to get the thumbs up in that public Roman Colosseum. You won't be fearful. You'll be ready to tell your story.
Yeah.
And bridge, what I mean by bridge, you don't want to spend 20 minutes talking about yourself. You want them to have the chance to ask you questions about skills that are of interest to them. It's not about you, it's about them. They have to find out who of the candidate pool has the skills to solve the problems that they face on a routine basis. You need to prove you have those skills. So don't spend a lot of time. This is like a 2-minute drill after you've talked about your childhood
Yeah.
values, the education that qualifies you, your brand, then you say, and based on what this job is being identified for and the background I just briefly talked about, it looked like a natural fit. And that's why I'm excited to be here today and look forward to you learning more about me, period. It's a bridging statement that puts the ball back in their court,
Ah,
like when you play chess and you have to hit the clock so that
yeah,
it's their turn.
yeah,
You want to push the clock to
yeah.
their side and sit back and say, I'm ready. Come at me with your skill questions because that's what's coming next. Let's talk about that. It's a bridge. Get done talking about yourself and hand the ball back to them and say, let's talk about what you want to know. What do they want to know? That's step two.
I mean, very few people would do that. And I think that impresses a lot of people to be able to put the ball back in their court. It shows a lot of confidence, Resilience, incredible.
It comes back to holding the nail and the hammer at the same time. You want to control the pace. You don't just let it fritter away. You only got a half hour to get your story out. And here we come, step two of the interview. It's the heart of the interview. This is a big section. This is where they're asking about your skills. And despite the fact that it's a 20-minute part of the interview, and in the interest of our video time, I'm not going to spend much time on this because we talked about this in the first video. If somehow you've still been listening and you didn't go back to the first one, go back there so you'll know what we're talking about. This is the heart of the interview. This is where they want to find out about your past behavior, which is their best predictor of how you'll work for them. This is where they'll ask you a specific question about your past skills in a certain area of interest to them. Things like, give me an example from your past where attention to detail solved the problem. Give me an example from your past where there was conflict between people, and I want to see how you're good as a conflict resolver. Give me an example from your past where you had difficult goals that needed to be persisted despite many odds, but you persisted and you got the job done. These are all skill-based behavioral questions that you answer with stars. And those who've watched the first video know it's situation, task, action, result. That's all the interview is. And we won't talk much more about that because you've got your star stories if you did what the preparation was that we talked about in the first video. So what comes after your skills? That's their questions to you. What's step three? Your questions. That's another segment. And I can't tell you as an interviewer how many times people have ruled themselves out when they came to that stage of the interview. And I said to them, Brad, do you have any questions for me? And I would get polite answers like, no, your people have been great. They've really answered all my questions. I don't have anything more. Thank you. What a missed opportunity. You know, most of the time, the last person to interview is the head of the whole department. They have a completely different perspective from everybody else that you've been talking to. Be prepared with your questions to show them you are thoughtful, you've done your homework, you have intelligent questions. You don't just ask them anything that you can find on the internet that's obvious. And in fact, that's the time when you bring out your list and you say, wait a minute, yeah, I did have some questions. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. And you kind of tilt it so they see you've got 10 or 20 questions that you've already been talking to the other folks about. You say, oh yeah, for the executive, I had these 2 or 3 questions that I was curious about. Depends on who you're talking to. If it's a human resource interviewer, you might ask them about policies for continuing education, for internal development versus outside. I'm an outside candidate. How come you going out? What happened to the other person? Why did they leave? Oh, they got promoted. That's great. What did they do right? Because I got those same skills. What did they do wrong? I never do those things. It's an interaction. And in fact, here's the point where I'll say, when you ask your smart question, again, you don't just get an answer and say, oh, thank you. That's a good answer. You're pretty smart. No. You ask a question. They give you an answer. You give one more response back that reinforces your brand. Okay? What do you do about promotion from within? Oh, we try to look for the best candidates and move them up and develop them. That's great. As you remember, I'm a continuing education guy. I'm working on my MBA right now, so it's exciting to know that you promote from within and you look for development of people. Use every answer to your question as a connection to reinforce your brand. That's why it was an important question to you. You got the answer that helped you, and now you want to reinforce to them who you are and what you've got that works. So we've got 1, 2, 3, your questions. 4, this is a sales pitch. You're selling yourself, they're buying. Okay? Close the deal, bring it on home. It's kind of a thank you and reinforcement of who you are. I look at it as 3 parts. Thank you, but don't just say, oh, thank you, I appreciate your time. Thank you for what? During your interview, be engaged in what they're sharing with you, particularly when they answer your questions, what they're emphasizing. and you say, thank you. I really appreciated your conversation about internal growth, continuous learning and development. That resonated with me as a continuous learner. You thank them for something specific and reinforce why that's important to you and why you're good at that skill or ability and why that's important to them. Show enthusiasm. Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll see you later. I mean, aside from the obvious, finding
Right.
out what's the next step,
Yeah.
what's the process, are they going to get back to you in 2 weeks? Thank them for something specific. Show enthusiasm for the opportunity. Boy, with what I learned, this seems like a perfect fit because, third part, reinforce your brand. You gave them your brand up here,
Yeah.
and you're reinforcing your brand down there. If during the interview you learned about some other very important things to them that you hadn't really been thinking about, but you've now tuned into, then you reinforce at the end that you're really good at that.
I have
Let,
a
let,
friend that's a pastor that said a lot of people come up to him and say, "Great sermon." Well, he's like, "Can you be more specific? What was it in that that really touched you?" And
yeah,
that's what you're coming up with. What specifically
yeah.
happened and can happen?
Right. And I'm gonna bridge back to here just for a second between the close and your questions, because you may learn something in that your questions part that makes you want to get the close. You want to seal the deal at the end. I always have a few key questions that I like to ask, and I'll suggest it here for your listeners. One key question is they've come to learn about you different from the resume. The resume got you in there and they're talking to you. They've learned a lot about you. But a question you can always ask them is like this: Hey, Brad, now that you've gotten to know me a little better, do you have any reservations about my being able to do the job that we're trying to fill?
Ah,
One or two things is going to happen,
yep,
assuming they're honest. I mean, they just may give you motherhood and apple pie. No, everything's fine. We don't have a problem.
right,
Okay, if that's the case, then you just say, great, because I see a good fit here too.
yep,
Okay, that. But the best thing, if it's going to happen, is if they're honest and say, Brad, frankly, you got great qualifications. If anything, I'm a little concerned you're overqualified. So I'm not sure that this is the right fit for you. Or they say, Brad, no, this is great. You're really impressive, but I think you're not quite ready yet for this job. Two extremes, and they feed that back to you. What a great thing to know before you walk out the door, because that's your last chance to defend yourself. And on those two sides, there's two ways to do that. On the one side, if they're overqualified, what they're worried about is you're going to get bored. You're going to keep looking for a job just like you looked for this one, and you'll be gone. They'll invest in you in training. In 3 to 6 months, you'll be gone. So you need to tell them, don't worry about my being overqualified. If anything, I'm not looking at this just to get a job. I'm looking at this to move forward in my career. You don't need to worry about me shopping around. I'm not going to get bored. I'm not that kind of person. We already talked about initiative. I'm going to find things to use that extra experience to help you, maybe save money. Maybe I'll be working with my manager and figure out we don't need to hire that contractor anymore. I can do that work. Don't worry about that. I can do that work. I see you promote from within. If I start showing you what I'm capable of, a year from now, we'll probably be talking about how I can contribute more to your organization. Not how I can get a raise and get more money, how I can
yeah,
contribute to you
right,
with that extra
right,
skill. Don't be worried about my being overqualified. Underqualified, different response. Underqualified, they're worried that you're going to falter and they're going to waste time on you. Underqualified, you need to prove to them I'm a fast learner. And you give them a short story about, hey, I didn't know that much about sales when I first got in, but my experience doing X, Y, and Z, within 3 months, I was the top salesperson for that region.
mm,
I will work the extra hours. I'm eager to be able to contribute to your
yeah,
organization, and you
yeah,
don't need to worry about me. I'll do what I need to do on my time to get up to speed fast. Don't worry about me being underqualified. And here's an example to show you, quick star, how unfamiliarity in an area was not an obstacle for me to be successful. Between your questions and the close, because in the close, you want to tell them thank you for something specific they shared. You want to show enthusiasm for the job, and you want to reinforce your brand, including whatever you learned during the interview that may be relevant, like they may think you're overqualified, they may think you're underqualified, or whatever. That's your close to finish it and knock the ball out of the park. And then five is simply the thank you, the official note. Within 24 hours, maybe that afternoon, you send a thank you to everybody that you met. Get a business card from every person, including the administrative assistant who worked all of your arrangements, if it
Yeah.
was out of town in the hotel, who brought in lunch. Every person you met, try to
Hmm.
get a card. And in between, when you take a bathroom break or while you're waiting for your interview, write some notes on the back. Tennis player, three kids in the family,
Yeah. Yeah.
likes to watch Sunday football,
Yeah.
whatever. So when you write your note, you will stand out from the crowd when you say basically the same thing you do to close the deal. It's just in writing. You say thank you for something specific, for the administrative assistant, for the great lunches you arranged, and the hotel accommodations were great, for the HR person who taught you about their continuing education, and for the executive who talked about the 3-year plan and your excitement about where they're going different from where they went before. Thank you for something specific I learned when I met with you. I'm excited about it. And with my brand, your clothes, I see a great fit, and I'm looking forward for the opportunity to contribute to you. 5 stages of the interview: first impressions, the stars, your skill questions, your questions to them, well prepared, your close at the meeting, and your thank you note that comes within 24 hours. And Brad, those 5 steps become the 5 keys to your success, so that if you're prepared, you're not afraid and you're in control.
I think number four is what stuck out to me is that they'll shake their hand, great to meet you, and leave without asking the question, like you just said.
Yep,
That's the last chance to hey, what did they really think of me? And the last time for me to be able to pitch my story.
absolutely right. And in my book, we don't have time for everything here, but for those who want to get the book and read it, I talk about the buying selling dynamic. When you're first coming in, they're buying, you're selling. They're skeptical. They want to find out if is the product good. They're going to ask a lot of questions. And then as it shifts, you need to look for clues to whether they've kind of already thought about you as a viable candidate, and now they want to make sure this viable candidate doesn't go to their competition. Now they want to buy you. They've changed from buying or from yeah, they've changed from buying to selling. They want to sell you
Ah,
on their company. They want to sell you on
yeah,
their company. And there are a lot of clues that I go to in the book, but the simple one is they start bragging about themselves. I mean, if they don't care about you, they've mentally written you off, they're not going to brag about themselves too much unless they just want to leave you with a nice impression of who they are. But you can watch for signals that I talk about in the book to see if they're going from buying to selling. And if they start moving into the selling mode, then you have all kinds of opportunities on your questions you ask, how much time you spend with them. You want to be respectful of the schedule,
yep.
but they may tell you, don't worry about the time. I want to know more about you. What are you interested in? When they go into the selling mode, so like you say in the close, it comes back to putting all of these pieces together to make the deal work. And especially if you can get them into the selling mode that they want to sell their company on you and you're in the buying mode, now you can be ready with the offer to have a good negotiation. And that's for a whole conversation at another time. Our next of the 3 sections, we've done at-home preparation, we've done today the interview steps. The third one is how do you make your resume stand out from the crowd and
Mhm.
achieve its objective? So we'll cover that in the next episode, Brad.
Well, I'm almost excited to try to go for an interview after listening to this because you've like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain. You've kind of opened up what we're all afraid about, the unknown. You kind of opened up everything on I mean, I'm sure you were a great interviewer, and that's kind of, you've been on both sides of the table. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
so yeah, wisdom comes from experience. And thank you for passing this on to all the listeners. And I pray that so many people will get jobs because of the wisdom today.
I hope so. I mean, that's my passion to help others like you. And I think you'll probably post a website
Yeah.
link, not a website, an email link. And I'm willing to get questions. I'm not going to write people's resumes,
Great.
but if they have questions, if they want
Yeah.
strategy ideas, if they're stumped on how do you build whatever,
Hmm.
I'm happy to answer those questions. And I know you're going to be having a section on your website that'll have the outlines of today's
Yeah.
talk.
Oh,
We'll
perfect.
have that. We'll
Yeah.
have that for everybody,
Yeah.
and any other kinds of tools and tips that we can share. I think you're doing a great service to the community, Brad, and I'm happy to be part of it.
No. Thank you, Artie. Great talk today. Look forward to the next episode.
Thank you. Take
You have a
care.
great day.
You too. Bye bye.
See ya. Thank you for listening today. Quite a segment. Please subscribe to our channel so you get all the latest updates and you can see all the past great stories of people who have overcome. I'm Brad Henry. Thank you for tuning in.